This conference will now be recorded.
All the way up. All right, can everybody hear me? All right, well, first of all, I'd like to thank everybody for coming. This is an amazing turnout. Normally down here at City Hall, it gets pretty lonely anytime we're having any type of meeting. So to have this type of community engagement and participation is great. So I want to thank everybody for taking that time out of their day and showing up here. Before we begin, I'd like to go over a few items. Myself and City Council want to hear from each and every one of you that took the time out of your busy day and made the effort to attend this meeting. We believe that your voice is a central component in the functioning of our democracy. We have established some guidelines for the public portion of the meeting that will facilitate your views and opinions being heard by myself and council. I'd like to briefly go over those guidelines now before we get started. Okay, and I assume everybody's got a copy of the guidelines on the table. The City Council and I, Mayor Dawson, wish to allow public comments during tonight's work session. In doing so, the order of the meeting must be preserved so that the meeting will be productive. All public comments on the meeting agenda items will be taken during the specified public comments portion of our meeting, unless otherwise noted on the agenda or allowed by me. To ensure that all interested parties have the opportunity to participate and to maintain order during the City Council meeting, the following guidelines apply to all public comments. At all times, I will preside over and control the meeting. Individual speakers may speak for 3 minutes. If I bang my gavel, you should stop speaking. If you would like additional time, you may ask for additional time. Please do not simply repeat comments already made. If you agree with the prior testimony, simply state so and move on to additional comments or information that you wish for council to consider in their deliberations. A member of the public may not speak more than once during the public comment period, unless called upon by me to clarify prior testimony. It is not the policy of the mayor and the council to engage in dialogue with the public during the public comments portion of the meeting. Rather, the public comments portion of the meeting is intended to allow the public to address the mayor and council and provide input regarding the agenda item. All questions must be addressed to me, and I will refer those questions to the appropriate person. No person may speak to council that has not been called upon by me, and I will refer the question. All speakers that I call must address council right here from the podium. Let's see. To allow the process of deliberations among council members to be uninterrupted after the public comments portion of the agenda is closed, no further public testimony will be permitted. Persons yelling or otherwise addressing council from the audience are out of order and may be removed by my order. I have the sole right to determine whether any person is out of order and subject to removal. And so I do not want to do that. I want everybody here to be heard. So please keep it respectful and don't make me do that. But I will do that if I need to do that. We understand that some of these issues may be emotionally charged. Please be respectful of others' opinions, and the outcomes of this process will be more productive as we work towards solutions that are best for all. Remember, reasonable people can disagree without being disagreeable. And now briefly, I'm going to take everybody through just kind of an overview of how this meeting will proceed. I will begin by opening the meeting, and then I'll refer to legal counsel here, Joe Laubner, and he is going to take us through the issues that they have identified that possibly exist within our zoning code. Let's see. After legal counsel is done addressing myself and the city council, we'll then open the discussion to members of city council to determine whether or not these proposed issues exist within our current zoning code. After council has made that determination, I will open the meeting for public comment. Each person that would like to speak will be allowed to. We want to hear from each and every one of you that want to speak. I will first call on those that have signed up on our sign-up sheet out in the hall, and then after that, I will open it up to anyone else who would like to come forward and address the council and the mayor. When you are called to speak pursuant to Section 228, time for public comment of our Code of Ordinances, City of Sedalia, you'll approach the podium, speak directly into the microphone so everybody can hear you. And I'm completely deafenless here, so please speak up and speak into the microphone. And then you'll be given 3 minutes to address myself and council. After everyone has had a chance that wants to speak, then we'll open closing discussion with council, and we will determine if the possible issues that have been identified by council exist, then how are we going to move forward and address those issues. So that having been said, we'll go ahead and get rolling. And thank you to everyone for coming. So here we go. We will call this May 4th, 2022 Public Works Session of the Sedalia City Council to order. First, we have Joe Laubner from Laubner Legal to take us through the zoning issues.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you for all the members of the public who've come out tonight. Tonight's meeting was a request by the City Council to ask staff to hold a work session to address some issues that have come up through a specific application that was presented in the community that may have pointed up an issue with the city's zoning code that we don't have a particular use that is set. So this is designed to initially start a process for considering issues that are related to, while it's a specific application that kind of brought this issue to light, the issue that we're going to talk about tonight does not deal with a specific application. This deals with the general zoning laws of the City of Sedalia and how the city may want to look at making changes to those. So I thought it would be helpful, in speaking with the mayor and with the city administrator, I thought it would be helpful to go through just some basics of how zoning laws work, because sometimes we have, maybe a misunderstanding of how they work, or maybe even haven't heard of it before. So I do want to walk through some basics of that so we have an understanding of where we hope to go with this evening. So first and foremost, all cities in the state of Missouri are authorized by state statute to enact and enforce zoning regulations. What a zoning regulation does is it says what kind of uses you can put to particular pieces of property in the city. And zoning laws have been around in the United States for almost 100 years. They were first kind of brought out in the 1920s, and they've been in Missouri really since about that same time. Generally, if a city's zoning ordinance does not list or if it lists uses that are permitted, then anything that is not listed is not permitted. So an example might be one of the issues that have come up in cities throughout the state of Missouri and throughout the nation really in several recent years is maybe people that want to keep urban chickens, or they want to keep beehives. And if we don't have those uses listed in a residential district, then we can't have chicken coops and we can't have beehives in a residential district. A city would have to then go in and make an amendment to their zoning code to allow that use in that district as an example. Uses can be what are called as of right, or they can be subject to a special use or conditional use requirement. Excuse me. So when I say as of right, what I'm talking about is you might think, if you've heard of the residential zoning district that's called R1. Most cities have one of those, and that usually stands for residential 1 or residential single family. So it's usually one of the least intensive zoning districts other than agricultural. And so R1, as of right, typically allows the single family uses that are in there. Now, go back in the 70s and 80s, or, remember the giant satellite dishes that used to be like 8 feet across, and the giant, TV towers that people used to have. Many times a city would say, you can use a piece of property in an R1 district for a house, for a single family residence, as of right. But if you're going to put up a giant satellite dish, then that might be subject to a conditional use, or a special use, and they would put additional regulations on that. So that's the distinction between when we talk about something that's as of right versus a conditional use. So again, you might move into your house and use it as a single family house, fine, but when you want to go add that satellite dish, then you would have to go to the city and seek what's called a special use permit, or sometimes they're called conditional use permits. They put conditions on the use. It has to be hidden by bushes, or has to be behind the house, or something like that. Those are the kind of conditions that you typically see. So tonight we are here to talk about the concept of warming shelters, or maybe certain other provision of transitional services in the city. And currently, at this time, there are no regulations that permit warming shelters or transitional services in the city. Okay? I took a look through the city zoning code exhaustively to try to find, a way for the application that had been brought before us to work, and there wasn't a way to do that. And so that's where the concept came of saying, hey, if this is something that we need in the city, then we need to look at changing the law to allow this, and how that would go about. And that's really the purpose for tonight, is to start that ball rolling, to hear from citizens, to have the council hear, what options there may be and how we might approach this particular issue as a community. So again, I'll echo the mayor's thanks for this many people. This makes it a better process, because we get to hear from the citizens what they want to see, if a zoning change is in order, and if it's in order, how to go about doing it. Okay. So changes to a city zoning code may be initiated by private applicants, or they can be initiated by the city themselves. So you may buy a piece of property and you may say, well, I know that this is an R2 district, so it's meant for duplexes, but I really want to build my single family house here. My picket fence is going to fit perfectly on this lot, and this is how I want to use it. So you would come to the city as a private applicant, and you would say, I would like to seek a rezoning of this property from R2 to R1, okay? Now, the city can also make zoning changes. And so I kind of alluded to this a second ago, but what I will tell you is that zoning changes, when they occur, they are either in the form of what are called text amendments or rezoning, okay? And so I referred essentially to a rezoning earlier. That person that might want to come in and move their property from an R2 designation to an R1 is asking to do a rezoning, and that is a modification of the city's zoning code. And the way it kind of works, going to the next piece, is a text amendment. So text amendments essentially say, they lay out what the regulations are. So when we say an R1 district, we know that it's an R1 district because the zoning text says that. And then in the text of the zoning regulation, it would say R1, as of right, a person can put one single family house, and we'll go through and it will list issues like, how far does the house have to be set back from the street? How far does it have to be set back on the sides from the neighbors and from the rear yard, and where easements go, and where you can put a fence, and all those types of things are covered in the text, okay? And then the text of the zoning code is then married up with a map of the city and shows all of the parcels of the city. And then that's where you kind of get the rezoning, because when you apply the text of the zoning code to the map itself, that's where you have the zoning initially, and then the rezoning that people will change is changing the map. And as I mentioned, actually it's either an applicant or the city that can do a rezoning. So you could have a business that's located in a C1 district, a commercial district, and if the city would like to see that go residential in the future, or if they would like to see it go industrial in the future, they could actually rezone your property while you're on it. Okay, and then what a lot of people don't understand is that if a zoning change like that occurs, if the city did one, or if you even did one yourself, that you have a right to continue to use your property the way you have been using it until such time that that right is extinguished. So if something happens where you stop using it for a period of time, it can lapse, and so forth. And so that's called a legal non-conforming use. And so that's kind of how zoning works from a text change on that. The other thing I'd like to point out is that any change to the zoning code, whether it's a text amendment, whether it's a zoning map amendment, or whatever, The statutes require that a change must first be brought to the Planning and Zoning Commission, a different body than this body, and that is subject to a public hearing. So they would actually have to advertise in certain circumstances, like for example, if it's a rezoning, a change in the map itself, all of the neighbors within 185 feet of the property to be changed will get a specific notice, and then everybody else is noticed up in the newspaper so that everybody knows that a change is occurring. Because the reason for zoning is essentially to protect not only the person who invests in the property themselves, but it protects the people's investment around that. Prior to the existence of zoning, earlier than the 1920s, you could build your dream house with your nice white picket fence, and someone could build a chicken rendering plant right next door and ruin your ability to use that. Now, what I will tell you is that door swings both ways, because if you have someone who has invested in industrial property, that's a hard zoning designation to get, because it's a really intense use of the land. And so we don't want to have a situation where someone invests in an industrial property and then someone can move that white picket fence next door and essentially, say, well, I don't like the chicken rendering plant next door anymore, so you guys need to get rid of it. Well, they're the ones that moved to that use. Many times you might see stories on the newspaper where someone, lives by an airport, and then, they built their new house and the airport's been there for 30 years, and then they complain that the planes are loud. Oh my goodness, look around. So, but that's how zoning does work. So first, one of the things I would say is tonight's meeting is not designed to change a law at all. What it is designed to do is to start a discussion about whether what are the issues that are out there? How do we resolve those issues? Are there resources in the community that exist? Do those resources address the need completely or not? And if they don't, then how do we go about finding a way to address the needs that are out there, and can we affect that through a zoning change? Because if that is the case, then the input that we hope to hear this evening is that if that is something that's needed in the city, then the city council would have city staff begin to work on a potential draft ordinance or regulations that would help address the issue and the concerns really on both sides. And that's why this should be a very collaborative effort. Your information this evening is very, very much desired, and it helps us, create the best law possible for the citizens of Sedalia. Once the Planning and Zoning Commission completes its hearing, their job is to make a recommendation, and they are only a recommending body, so they're essentially supposed to be doing the heavy lifting, doing the research into what the changes are about, what options there are, and then they make a recommendation to the City Council. When that item then comes forward to the City Council is again required to hold a public hearing. So they will hold a public hearing in that circumstance, and then they can follow the Planning Commission's recommendation, but there isn't a straight requirement. So they may decide, because again, it's the Planning Commission is simply a recommending body, but there are a lot of process in that. So nothing, I guess, again, what I'd like to say is nothing's changing tonight. Okay, we can't even get to that, because before, we would have to come up with what change would need to be made, what would that change look like, and then we would ultimately have to do a notice public hearings in front of the Planning Commission, and then public hearings before the City Council. So it's kind of a long process, but that's what we're intending to start this evening. So I think that is what I have as far as the basic zoning issues are included. So if there's any reason that we need to get to the city zoning code, that what you saw at the bottom of the last slide is actually where you can click. So your city's code of ordinances are completely available to you on the city's website. You can actually just search the Sedalia Code of Ordinances, and it's actually chapter 64. That is where your zoning code is. You can actually pull this stuff up and look at it for yourself. So, and that's a link to it there. That's what I have for right now.
Okay. Before we open council discussion, I would like for all members of Planning and Zoning to please stand. And I just want to acknowledge you guys that you are here and here to hear the public comment. So, perfect. Thank you. Thank you. All right. So we will open council discussion. So what we need to address here is there an issue with our current zoning code And does council want to go ahead and see if we can find a way to fix this? We'll start with you, Steve.
I believe there is an issue, and I think council should start this process. It's been pointed out by our legal counsel, and this is the process that we have to get into to facilitate moving forward.
I agree with Steve. I think it's important that we look at this.
Thank you, Councilwoman Foster.
Let's go with it, I'm ready.
All right. Thank you, Councilman Cross.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay. Thank you, Councilman Richardson.
Yes, I do believe that there's an issue and that we need to see how we can address it.
Thank you, Councilwoman Boggess. All right. Thank you, Councilman Marshall.
First, I want to thank everybody for showing up tonight. This means a lot, whether it looks like it or not. We have had several public hearings where there has been zero in attendance from the community. And so to see the outflow and the participation that we have tonight really means a lot. So I'm very much looking forward to everybody's opinion and everybody's take on this issue. As your city council member, I try to look at three things when I'm sitting up here. One, how are your tax dollars being spent? I want to make sure the city has a balanced budget and your money is not going to waste. The second thing I look at when we're looking at these issues is I want to make sure that your rights, your privacy, your freedoms aren't being infringed upon. I think I can kind of speak for councils. We all kind of believe that way as well. And the third thing I look at is your safety, whether that's fire, whether that's police, or whether that's your drinking water. How is what we are passing or discussing going to affect that? Looking at this issue, I'm here as an open mind to figure out, is there an actual issue or not? Because I don't know. And I say that because I have heard it from opposite ends, that no, there's not a grave need for this, or yes, our warming shelters and our resources are being overwhelmed. So I'm here to hear what you have to say. My thoughts are, one, do we not have an issue, or do we have an issue that is sufficient enough that our charities and our churches can accommodate those problems? And if that's the case, the city doesn't need to step in and regulate or overprotect something that our wonderful churches and our charities can take in. Or two, do we have an issue that we do need to put in place some regulation to make sure that the public is safe and those who are in need are provided for? What I don't want to happen is that there's not an issue, the city comes in, creates this opening, this zoning, and then down the road, we've now invited a problem to our community because it's there and it's available to those in need. Does that sort of make sense? I don't want there to have a solution for a problem that doesn't exist, and then down the road, we now have that problem. So once again, I thank you very much for your participation tonight, and I'm very much looking forward to what you have to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Oldham. Councilman,
Continue to the discussion.
continue the discussion? All right. Well, I have consensus that we do have an issue and that we want to address that. So now we'll go ahead and open up the meeting for public comment. I'm going to call Chad Mullins first. If you could please step to the podium, state your name and your address, and then you got 3 minutes.
Yes, thank you. I'm Chad McMullen.
Oh, sorry.
That's okay. And I live at 3774 Stillbrook Avenue in Sedalia, and I work at First Christian Church as the senior pastor. I also represent tonight the Pettis County Ministers Association, of which I'm the president. And we had a meeting today, normally scheduled meeting, but this topic did come up. They, 8 pastors present, asked me to speak on their behalf tonight to say we do have an issue, and we are in support of a warming shelter in this town, as well as the community cafe, strongly in support of that. Also, my church greatly puts energy and effort into this ministry, and a lot of us take part in sharing time at the warming shelter to help folks who need it. And so maybe lastly, I'm here on behalf of Ken Johnson, who was a member of my church, and he had a drinking problem, but he was a chef here in town. He worked at the Italian restaurant next to my church. He was a good member of our church, helped with our Logos Children's Ministry, and served well. He had a drinking problem, which was part of his response to losing his family in Jefferson City, and it ended up costing him his job and his home, and he carved out a place to sleep in somebody's recreational vehicle illegally, sleeping in that house. And on Christmas Eve 6 years ago, he froze to death. And the coroner came and talked to me about him, and I hate to share it this way because it's raw and it's emotional and it's personal at this point, but the coroner told me he was a human popsicle. His body would not bend, so they had to cut the side of the RV out to pull his body out. This is a member of my church, and believe me, I felt partially responsible, and ever since there, I've been an advocate for a warming shelter. Not only should we have it, but I like to work at it and meet the folks who are struggling and help them. I think it's very necessary in this community. I've seen anywhere from 8 to 12 every time I've worked there on those nights and those days that are so cold. And it's just an important thing to help these people who may freeze to death, literally. So on behalf of the Pettis County Ministers Association, First Christian Church, and Ken Johnson, I ask you to really consider having a warming shelter and continue to support the Community Cafe.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Thank you, Pastor McMullen.
Thank you.
Okay, and I apologize in advance if I butcher anybody's name. It's not my intent. So up next we have Christy Goodman. You good? Okay. I've got Carrie Boron. Anybody? Carrie Brown. That's it. I'm sorry, I'm having trouble. Mm-hmm. Oh, if you could step to the microphone so we can hear you, I appreciate it. I'm completely deaf in this here, so it's tough to hear.
Okay, I did not come here to really speak. My friend Yolanda and I came here to assist in information about this kind of stuff because that's what we do in our daily work. We work with homeless people. Okay. With all types of issues, and we would be willing to answer questions or help with the discussion of this. I didn't come to speak.
Okay. Do you have any good information regarding this that you could share?
Oh, yeah, we got plenty of that.
Okay, I'll move on to, and thank you for those comments, Ms. Brown. I'll move on to Yolanda Day. With you? You're good? Okay. So next I will move on to Paul Jones.
Paul Jones, 221 East Pettis Street, pastor of Burns Chapel Free Will Baptist Church. I stand before, is it up? Can you hear me now?
Yeah, we hear you.
I stand before you. I'm not here to cause a problem. I'm not here to make a scene, but I am here to express a concern. And I want it to be pointed out that I'm not against helping, because we all should be helping. But what I am here to address is I got involved in this discussion back in January of this year because people were coming to me as a pastor in the community, I'll just say it, over on the north side, asking me questions about what was going on with the application. I did not know. I came to the city council and I came to the mayor's office and asked them to bring a meeting together, which they did on January 20th, to get some information out to the public and get a better understanding of what was about to take place. Again, I'm not against a warming shelter, but I am for what's right and how it's done.
Mm-hmm.
And with that being said, over the time, there's been meetings, there's been rumors that should have been dispelled earlier in the process of what's going on right now. This is something that started in January, I think, of 2021, and it only came to the table and to the public in January of 2022. Ladies and gentlemen, the Bible says, oh, how good and how pleasant it is for brethren to dwell together in unity. I'm going to say, oh, how good and pleasant it is for Sedalia to come together as a community.
Mm-hmm.
Let's do what we can to help everybody, but let's do it in a way that keeps everybody informed. People were coming to me asking me questions that I did not know. The information should have been given to the people earlier than it was, which is causing a problem. There are a lot of people that aren't happy about it on both sides.
Mm-hmm.
But we need to come together
Mm-hmm.
and unite together. We are in the United States of America.
That's right.
We need to come together as a community and unite together and work together. A song was written back in the 1970s that said, working together, we can make a change.
Mm-hmm.
So let's all come together. I'm going to turn around so you can see my motor. Let's all come together and work together as a community, because we cannot survive if we don't work together.
Mm-hmm.
And I've said enough.
All right. Thank you, Pastor Jones. Okay, moving along. Next on the list is Chris Stewart.
Oh, I'm not that tall. Good evening. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak. I'm here on behalf of Katy Trail Community Health, and we just opened a second site up there on Main Street. My intent on speaking here is to say that I think we are in great need of a warming shelter, and we've been supportive of the Mercy Rest Stop since day one. And the reason we have been is because there is a tremendous need in this community to provide services and to help people move out of poverty, move out of substandard housing, move away from food insecurity. There's a tremendous need for that to happen. And my understanding of the Rest Stop is that it is a place where people can go to get services. We've committed to putting a community health worker in the location. And just so that you know what a community health worker is, it is a person who specializes in the community that they are serving. So they're from the community that they're serving. And their intent is to help folks who may not want to get help, to help them bridge into health care, mental health care, substance abuse, social services. Health, according to the World Health Organization, is a state of complete physical, mental, and social well-being, not merely the absence of illness. And we know that the number one consideration for a community's health is the social conditions under which people work. and live. It's the number one issue. It is the thing that determines whether somebody can be healthy or not. So folks who live in places where their housing isn't great, they have insecure housing, they don't have access to good food, those are the folks that our intention is to serve in Mercy Rest Stop. I want you to know that churches and community organizations are all doing their part, but they're doing their part in a crisis environment, right? Our intent is to try to solve some of the problems using the resources that we have, using the resources of our partners. Finally, I want to ask you a question. I don't know if it's rhetorical or not, but my understanding is that 2 permits have been issued to Mercy Rest Stop to build. And I'm curious as to why we are only looking at a rezoning, or creating a warming shelter zoning at this point. Where was the due diligence when the first application for a building permit was submitted? We wouldn't be in this position. So, thank you very much. I appreciate your allowing me to speak.
Thank you, Chris. Or Mrs. Stewart. Well, I am going to refer your question to Laubner. Mr. Laubner?
Well, again, we're not going to speak about individual applications
Okay.
this evening. We're talking about general changes, and like I said, just through the process of the original one, the application that came through, it was discovered that the zoning didn't fit, and so that's what we're trying to solve right here.
Right.
I understand.
Yeah, and we apologize for that. Okay, I will call Amanda Hubbard, please.
Hello, my name's Amanda Hubbard, and I work at the Open Door Kitchen. I see these people on a daily basis.
If I could stop you, if you just please state your address for the record.
Oh, I'm sorry. My address is 5150 South Limit Avenue, Sedalia. I have seen these people come in cold, frozen, ice frozen on their faces. I've seen them hungry. I take care of them every day, do my best for them, and I know that the people at the warming shelter do the same. There's a lot of church people, there's a lot of people in this community that have worked very hard to see this go through, and that's all I have. I just appreciate you listening to me tonight.
Okay. Thank you for your comments, Mrs. Hubbard. Okay, up next, I will call Gary Smith.
Gary Smith, 305 South Ohio, senior pastor of Liberty Life Center Church, also a owner of my wife with the Shepherd's Place here in the local business. I just want to affirm everything else that's been said. Really appreciate the explanation you gave of the zoning. That was good. And the atmosphere that was created here for open communication and transparency. I appreciate that very much. I just want to be on record that Liberty Life Center has been very much in favor of the Mercy Stop from its very inception. Have supported it financially, have supported it in prayer, and certainly are willing to support and be there physically as well, as we have been with the warming shelters and community cafe, and also a very big part of the embassy ministries here in town that meet a lot of those needs as well. So I just want to say I had the same question. She did. Why is this just coming up? Because of the Mercy Stop has been that has been out there for over a year now, and I thought it was ready to start digging here. But so I would really like to continue to see that addressed. I appreciate my brother here sharing the importance that we have of letting everybody get involved and making communication, not hiding information, getting it out there for everybody to be able to address it. That is so important. I want to just address how important this is right now. And you're talking here tonight about this process, and I'm thinking, man, you're talking about some time now. But we're in a time right now where economically we're in crisis in our country, and what's bad now, it's going to get worse. And the number of people that are on the streets now is going to multiply extremely quickly in the next month, I believe, in the months ahead. And it's important that we get on ahead of things rather than always lagging behind. And the Mercy Rest Stop is a great place to start. I think we need to do much more than that. And I think the city's been behind here in a lot of ways of supporting and getting behind those missions and ministries that are trying their best to meet these needs. So and one other thing, it's a spiritual law that we will be blessed. A city, a state, a nation is blessed when it cares for the poor and the needy. And to not do that brings the opposite. And I think that's a lot of what happens today in so many areas. So I just say the quicker we can move forward in making places that provide for these very urgent needs that are going to continue to grow, the better off it will be. Thank you.
Thank you, Pastor Smith. Okay, boy, I'm going to butcher this last name. I'm going to call Rosemary Rundin. Okay.
Hi, I'm Rosemary Rundlet. I live at 1009 Leon Avenue. And I thank you also for allowing us to speak and having this open communication. And I think that every single speaker that has brought up points, or I agree with most all. And I do want to just put this on top. I can't top what Gary just said, but this came to me. By the way, I am on the board of Mercy Rest Stop. Okay. I also belong to another ministry here in town, Waters of Grace, and so we were invited to partner with them in October of 2020. So this project is much older than even January of 21, and it's been spread around and gone through the Ministerial Alliance since those early days. So I'm sad when I hear people say they weren't aware of it, but anyway, and I've also, over decades of years, been involved in the community cafe. Okay, so I just have to say this. Proverbs 14:31, if you oppress poor people, you insult the God who made them, but kindness shown to the poor is an act of worship. And that is kind of, I guess maybe that's kind of my life motto somewhat. I know that I fully appreciate, as Pastor Gary said, learning more about the zoning and the planning and what goes into all of that, but and then echo Chris in saying, why just now? How could that have been overlooked? And we really do desire to serve the people where they are. Homeless people can't travel 5 miles. It takes an hour to get across this town on foot, somebody told me. So we need to serve them where they are. And I completely love what you said. Unity. Unity, unite. All the churches, all the people in this community unite to do exactly what needs to be done. Because I think there's enough people in this room that know exactly what needs to be done. Thank you again.
Perfect. Thank you, Mrs. Rundin. Okay, up next I'm going to call Mark Kempton.
First of all, I have to say I can't say anything in less than 3 minutes. But I appreciate the opportunity to talk. I didn't know exactly what the agenda would be. I appreciate the comments that have already been made, but there are a couple of other things I want to say personally from my observations about what has occurred.
Mr. Kempton, can you state your address, please, for the
Yes,
record?
108 West Pacific.
Thank you.
My wife and I are supporters of the warming shelter and of the need for transitional services. And that support really stems from the fact that Krista works and staffs the warming shelter when necessary. So she has seen and met and talked to those people that, but for the warming shelter, would be exposed to the elements, and some of them would not survive. She cooks at the Open Door Kitchen, and she sees and she meets and she talks to the people that need those services and that need the services that the Mercy Rest Stop Coalition will offer. And so our seeing that need and her serving that need in the capacities that she's able to has spawned our support for the need for transitional services that crystallized in the movement that is the Mercy Rest Stop Coalition. And I think it's really important not to shorten that name to Mercy Rest Stop, because coalition may be the most important part of that name, because it really is a coalition that was spawned by the community. It was spawned by a number of individuals that saw these needs firsthand, worked with these people, met these people, talked to these people, and from that bore the idea that has come to be identified as the Mercy Rest Stop Coalition Resource Center, because, as Chris Stewart said, somebody has to offer the opportunities for these people in jobs, in mental health, in community health services to enable them to take the next step in their lives. And so we became very, very strong supporters of that coalition. And I think it's important for everybody here tonight to recognize that need that exists. And I think we all say we support the mission to address that need. But I think it's really important, having engaged in a number of conversations with a number of people, that we look for a way to solve the problem. We don't want to throw up more roadblocks, create more delays, cause more problems. I think we really need to move forward with a solution. The Mercy Rest Stop has a solution. They have come forward with plans. They went through the process. The city issued a building permit. I understand there's some discussions about the best way to move forward from here, and we want to collaborate with you and do that. But this is a need whose time is now. This is not a need for next year. This is a need, as just was said, has to be addressed now, because people literally are going to die. So we appreciate the efforts that you're making to work with us on that, but it really needs to be done. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kempton. All right, up next, I'm going to call Kathleen Boswell.
I'm Kathleen Boswell, 312 South Sneed. And I am currently the president of the Sedalia Rotary Club. And I'm proud to say that the Rotary Club was one of the first, if not the first, community organization to get behind Mercy Rest Stop. I'm also in the League of Women Voters, and I've also served several terms on city council. And I can tell you, thank you for the presentation on what the zoning stuff means, because I was appalled when I found out that if it's not written down, it's not allowed. I didn't know that. So I am here to urge you to get it allowed, get it written down. I'm a night owl, so I tend to draw the 11 p.m. to 3 a.m. time at the warming shelter. Funny, Chris, yeah. And as gracious as St. Patrick's Church is to let the basement be used, it's not ideal, it's barely tolerable. There's 2 stalls in the bathrooms, and you might have 20 people there for, 3 days when it stays 0? And there's no showers. There's no way to do any laundry. I don't get to talk to very many of the people that are staying there because I am during the middle of the night and we hope they're sound asleep. But I did get to talk to a family one time. They have a house. It is just so ill insulated that when it stays at 0, they can't afford to warm it so the kids can sleep there. So the parents and their 2 kids were in one of the little rooms trying to spend the night for 4 days. And I think it's really wrong if we think, oh, if we build this nice shelter, all these people are going to come from Kansas City to stay down here. No, they won't. We're barely going to be able to take care of our own, and it's not a night after night after night place to stay. It's not becoming your apartment. It's an emergency thing. If you have a place that you're staying that doesn't have running water, and if you come to Community Cafe, I'm serving tomorrow night, come be my guest, taco salad, because it's Cinco de Mayo. Anyway, we know that there are a couple people that come in there and ask frequently to use the restroom because they don't have running water at home. So how can you take any care of yourself personally, do laundry, anything like that? Mercy Rest Stop will have washers and dryers so that you can have a clean outfit when you go to interview for a job. We need it. Please consider the zoning for it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Boswell. Okay, up next we have, got it, Kirk Martin.
Thank you. Kirk Martin, I am president of Open Door. I'm on the board of Mercy Rest Stop, and I was one of the early members of the warming shelter. That Sally Lockett gave me a call about 6 years ago, and we've never looked back since. Regarding the family that Kathleen was just talking about, I was there when they came in. And, you know, those movies where you have frost hanging on your eyebrows and mustache, that's exactly what all 4 of those looked like when they walked in. They were desperate. We got them hot soup, a hot coffee, and hot cocos for the kids. And when they went to bed, we didn't see them for 12 hours. They had to be woke up for lunch the next day. They were exhausted. Being on the board and the president of Open Door, we deal with this certain segment of the population on a daily basis. We're kind of one of the professionals in dealing with this segment. 50 years we've been doing this. Open Door has. Open Door has partnered with Mercy Rest Stop because we see the need. We see the need to fill a gap that's not being taken care of at this point in time. The warming shelter that's getting all the attention is only a fraction of what Mercy Rest Stop's going to do. The warming shelter was only open 25 days this week. That's less than 1 month. There's 12 months in the year, 52 weeks. The Mercy Rest Stop will be open 52 weeks. The warming shelter may be a month to a month and a half at the most, depending on the weather. It's weather triggered. You know, if the weather doesn't get to a certain temperature at night, we don't open. So, you know, I just appeal to everybody. I've heard some great comments tonight, and you know, I just hope that we do what the community needs, and we really do look after our community. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Martin. Up next, I'm going to call Kevin Wade. Up next, I'm going to call Richard Boehner.
Thank you, Your Honor, members of the council. My wife, Jan, and I live at 707 West 3rd, which is basically 3rd and Grand. And I I don't want to repeat the things that have been said. I agree with them so very, very much. So I'm going to just try to harp on one point. That is that there are so many people out there that really aren't able to figure out what to do. Now, I know this sounds incredible because when people come to your door, as they do quite often, to our door at 707 West 3rd, and ask for gas money, it is true most of the time what they're looking for is money to get gas, not, actually money for gasoline for a vehicle. And it is difficult, very difficult. It's a problem. But we have in our situation encountered some individuals who honestly don't know what to do next. We have someone who worked, picking up sticks, and this person is unable to maintain a vehicle. I've seen this person pull a trailer on a bicycle till the bicycle falls apart, doesn't know how to fix the bicycle, or doesn't have the resources to fix the bicycle. This works to do whatever they can, and this individual can't, if I may tell this story, came to the house recently, and I noticed he was losing weight visibly, and I said, I just don't have any sticks. I don't have anything for you to do. I'm happy to help you out, but you need a long-term solution. And we actually sat down. This is after my wife and I had made some lunches for this guy a few times. I'm saying, don't you know about the community cafe? Well, I went over there and they weren't open. The guy's illiterate. He can't read. He honestly can't read. I asked him what to read or he tried to read what was on my apron, and he got it completely wrong. There are people out there that just simply need a place like this rest stop where they can get the education that has been referred to. This gentleman, through the good graces of city workers and people that they've been referred to, various organizations, now is actually receiving some of the help that they're entitled to by state law. The man's working, picking up sticks, but he's disabled. He's got a bad hand. He's got various wounds, bad back. And he's just a hard luck fella. And, I don't really know that much about him. I only know as he presents himself on my porch, our porch, and, the fact that he needs help, but he needed to have directions as to how to get that help. Not just the help, but where do I start? And so my wife and I both are extremely in favor of the rest stop. We have worked at the warming shelter several occasions and think it's fantastic, but the education that Mercy Rest Stop hopes to provide, I think is essential. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Boehner. Okay, the last name I have on my list is Tasha Stokes.
Hello, I am Tasha Stokes, 416 West Morgan. I know we talk about Mercy Rest Stop. It's really not about not wanting this in the community. Everybody wants it in the community. We do need it in the community. We don't want it on the north side. That is our main issue. That is the issue that we have. We deal with a lot of different things that other people don't see over in the community, in the area. So when they say, okay, we're just going to put it there. No one came and walked around and said, talked to and knocked on doors and said, okay, how would you like this in your community? This is what we're thinking about doing over here. This is what we're thinking about putting over here. Is it okay? How would you feel if we did this? We were told, okay, well, we talked to some of the homeless people and we've seen this, but no one said, how would you feel about us putting this in your community? You have children, but they have needles, beer bottles, but my child goes outside and picks a needle up off the ground. And if they inject themselves with this needle, what's going to happen? Do you guys know? No. So we don't know what might be in that. So we're not saying that we don't want it. We want that because we need it for the people. I've worked in this community. I've worked for break time. I work at the hospital. I take calls. I deal with and I hear. I see. I've dealt with homeless people. We need it, yes. But we don't need it over here. Ask our opinion. That's all we are asking. That's all I have to say.
Thank you, Mrs. Stone. Okay, so I've worked through the list. Is there anyone in the gallery that hasn't got a chance to speak that wasn't on the list? If they could go ahead and come forward and line up here at the podium. And then I just need you to state your name and your address.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
All right. My name is Dinesha Hawkins. I live at 505 West Pettis. It's heartbreaking to know that what's being discussed here isn't even what was discussed in our January meeting. As of right now, I can't tell you if we're talking about a warming center or Mercy Stop, which from what I can understand from different people talking is two very different things. Mercy Stop is a place for people to get themselves together. It's not supposed to be long-term, which I understand, but it is, from how it sounds, a place where you probably will be there a few nights if you need to be. It's a place for you to start again. A warming center is a place that opens up during the wintertime to help with keeping people warm. Those are two totally different things, in my opinion. The way that things are being presented here, in my opinion, are two totally different aspects. With that being said, where the Mercy Stop land has already cut the trees down and everything, I live right in front of that. The community cafe is right next to my house. There, during the summertime, there is a lot of traffic, and I mean traffic to and from. I am not against Mercy Stop. I'm not against a warming center, but I'm sorry, I don't remember what your name is. She said that they have been discussing it since 2020. I did not learn until this year. Since then, since the meeting that we had in January, I have gotten 1 or 2 newsletters, and I believe the lady behind me has gotten 2 or 3, and that's since January. But yet, that is the first time any communication has been made. And again, I live right in front of where it is meant to be built and right next to the community cafe. I don't visit the community cafe. I don't have a need for it. I am not against the community cafe. The people that go to and from the community cafe who litter in my yard do annoy me, irritate me, because I am the one that has to pick that up. I have stopped, for a time had stopped in taking care of really the street part of my backyard. Once it starts getting cold, we don't really deal with that too much. I try to get back in there in the springtime. It doesn't always happen. The last time that it did, it was me, my nieces, and my nephews, and I had to send them away from finding a needle that I didn't know. I have found broken TVs, and I'm not just saying that that's from the people at the cafe. It's just random people. But that spot is hotter because of the cafe, which I'm not against. If someone needs a meal, I get that. I am not against it. I guess my question is, this is the first, not my question, this is my point. This is the first time there's been a full discussion for some of us that are greatly affected. I'm not against it, but I would have liked to have been part of a conversation before I walked out and seen trees cut down. That's where I stand. It seems like a lot of the people or organizations or churches, considering the fact that my bishop didn't know about it until this year, that have known about it are not directly involved with that community. And I get it. Our community as a whole does need it, but we're not putting it somewhere where our community as a whole is going to use it. This is going in one specific spot, and I get that. I've been looking up chapter 64, pull my phone straight out, and trying to better educate myself, because I don't know a lot. I don't know why the permits had stopped. I didn't know anything. Matter of fact, until I had got a call, hey, they're having a meeting down at the church on this night from Grandma Nancy, I would have not even known about that. I don't necessarily know if maybe they sent out stuff in the mail, but like anyone else, if it looks like junk mail, we all know where it goes. I'm not, and I don't mean that to be rude or anything, but you know, when we go through our mail, the main things we're trying to look for is the bills, and everything else, if it's not important, it's going in the trash, and we probably wish we could throw the bills in there too. I just wish that, I'm sorry for the hurt that you all are feeling from this being put on pause, but this is the hurt that I've been feeling now, especially knowing that there has been many of discussions for over a year. And this is the first time that I've got to discuss it. This is the first time that a lot of us in that direct community has got to discuss it. And that's for me, that's the bigger issue. Because maybe by now we could have already came to a plan. Maybe by now we could have already been moving in the direction that everyone would like to go. Because no one is saying that it's not needed. But I'd like to understand what we're doing, how we're going to do it, and are there ways to help us that are already a part of that community feel like we are safe? My neighbor behind me, her kids, she doesn't like to let them just go outside and play because there are a lot of different characters at the cafe. And I'm not saying all of them are bad, but there are a lot of different ones. It's very unsettling to walk outside of your door and seeing someone relieving themselves while your children are trying to ride their bikes, you know? And I understand everyone has different issues. I just wish the table would have been open for a discussion a long time ago, because I feel like there would have been a lot of less hurt feelings, a lot less of people trying to make it seem like one thing or another. That's all I have.
All right, thank you, Ms. Hawkins. Okay, anyone else who wants to go ahead and speak, go ahead and come on up to the podium, state your name and your address, and we'll give you 3 minutes.
I don't live in Sedalia, so I do live in Pettis County.
Okay, well, I just need your name or your address for the record.
My name is Michelle O'Donnell, 30746 Rattlesnake Hill Road, Smithton.
Okay.
The only thing that I have to say is, how long have the churches currently already been running a warming shelter and a cooling shelter? I don't know the exact right term, but if it's already been happening, it's not in the zoning, but it's already been happening. So does that not make it, whatever that term is?
So I will speak to that question.
Okay.
So that's the same as if you're speeding down the road and doing 55 and a 30. It's still against the law. You get away with it, and you'll get away with it. At some point, you will get caught, or it'll come out.
Okay, but
at that point, it is addressed. It's still illegal.
Okay,
so that's
but
where
the city has known as well. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Hello, thank you. My name is Michael Johnson. I live at 2700 Bristol Lane, Apartment B, Sedalia, Missouri. I am the youth pastor at Liberty Life Center Church, Pastor Gary's youth pastor. And, you know, I've lived in many different places, I grew up in Miami, Florida, and I lived in San Antonio, Texas. I lived near D.C. I've lived in a lot of big cities, and I recently relocated and moved to Sedalia this past year, not even a year. And I tell you what, I do love this community. It's a great city. It's a great place. But, you know, I had the privilege of serving the warming shelter one time and seeing the need. And, you know, not only are these people adults, but there's children, there's youth, there's pregnant women, mothers. And, you know, you know, I grew up in an area where I've seen a lot of bad things, and I've seen the need. And, you know, I used to be a firefighter EMT, and I went on a lot of calls. And all the places that we served and the people we served, we knew the need for things like the warming shelter, the Mercy Stop, Community Cafe, the embassy. You know, since living here and being a part of this community and being a part of doing it, I see the need as well. And I think where we as a people in this nation has lost touch is we view those who are homeless less valuable than those who are not. And, you know, and that is not so. They are people. They are God's people. That may be someone's brother, father, mother, sister, cousin, uncle. I don't know about you, but I personally had family who unfortunately did not have a place to live and call home. But I've seen places like the warming shelter, Mercy Stop, Community Cafe, and I've seen what it did in their life and how it changed them. And I just want to share one thing. You know, Scripture says, poor will be with you always. That means there's always someone in need, especially like Pastor Gary said, we are going into some times where it's just going to get worse. But, you know, Jesus said, for I was hungry and you gave me food. I was thirsty, you gave me drink. I was a stranger and you welcomed me. I was naked and you clothed me. I was sick and you visited me. I was in prison and you came to me. And I'm going to scroll down. It says, truly I say to you, as you did this for one of the least of these, you did it for me. You know, that's very important that we need to remember as a people, as a human race, is we, as Bishop here has stated, unity. I agree with that. We need to unite because, you know what, everyone's life is valuable, no matter what state they are in. And I feel I need to share and express how important these things are and that we need here in this community. And I thank you guys for everything, and I do love living in Sedalia. So thank you.
Thank you, Pastor.
Yes, my name is Nancy Sims Van Buren. I live at 421 West Broadway, and the biggest portion of my family left in Sedalia lives in that portion of town. But I think the part we're missing here, nobody denies that this is needed. It's a crisis around the nation. It just simply is. The problem is, what you're talking about right now is zoning. And when I hear zoning, I hear certain things will be in certain areas. And so we need to come to an agreement about, do we want to zone this area for this type of establishment? An establishment that is going to bring in, for lack of a better word, an element that is going to affect a community. A community that houses old people, excuse me, I'm them people, elderly people, and children. Them are my nieces and nephews that play outside the facility that now sits there. And there is an issue. The reason people don't know there's an issue is because nobody's asked. There's been a police report filed, so we can't pretend it's not an issue. But are we willing to zone that area for this type of facility? This is going to be an amazing facility for the city of Sedalia, but there are many locations that are already zoned that would better fit. I don't begin to know exactly what the zoning requires. That's why I don't work for the zoning committee. But what I do know is I travel this town every day. I have lived here all my life, and I know that there are locations that would be better suited. There's no need to assume that anyone thinks that this is not a need, because it is clear that it is a need. I see the people every day. You would have to be blind not to see it. I'm blessed, I'm fortunate, I get to lay in my bed every night and get up every morning. I'm nice, warm, and safe. But at the same time, we cannot pretend that we do not know that the people, and that doesn't mean all the people, but some of the people that will use this facility are people that have issues that may put other people in danger. And we have to consider that when we start talking about putting it in somebody's backyard. Or ask yourself, do you want it in your backyard? And when you start thinking about that zoning. That's all I got.
Thank you, Mrs. Sims.
Mr. Mayor, members of the City Council, I heard you say we had 3 minutes.
Yep. If I could have you state your name and your address?
My name is Noah E. Poole. I live at 210 East Henry Street, Sedalia, Missouri. As a minister, you said 3 minutes. Giving a minister 3 minutes is like telling a rat to go into a cheese factory and just nibble on the box. So I'll try to hurry. I've had the pleasure of listening to several ministers tonight. There is one passage that you didn't state, or you did not bring out. That is, in all of your getting, get an understanding. So if you had 2 years to work on this project, please explain to me why you did not contact the people in the community. Maybe somebody can speak to that. It is not that we don't want it because we need it. There was a young man and his lady friend that used to be in the park, and he was one of the ones that froze some years ago. When I used to walk in the park, I would take him meals, or I would go out and buy something to eat for him. And then I heard that he froze, which really hurt me because I knew right then and there is a need for a facility like what you're trying to put on the north side. But I can't understand that all the property on the east side, and there's not too many things on the east side, who chose to put it right there? May I get an answer? The community cafe. Now, will it be open on Saturday night? Okay, will it be open on Sunday night? Will the community cafe be open on Sunday night? Will the community cafe be open? Because from what I can understand, you're wanting to put it right beside the community cafe.
Okay, I'm going to bring the meeting back to order. This time period is for the public to address the council and mayor.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Now, I'm going to close with this, and I have a witness over on the other side of me. I am one that have, in the past years, organized meals for people on Saturday and Sunday. Am I right, Mr. Former Mayor? Am I right? So I know what it is all about, trying to help the community. And the Bible says, yes, what you do for the least of these. But I'm going to close with this. Whenever we get ready to do something in the community of Sedalia, in all of our getting, as we come together as one, get an understanding.
Thank you, Reverend Poole.
Hi, my name is Samantha Gilpin. I live at 1201 South Montgomery, and I stand before you representing the United Way of Pettis County. I am a transplant here in Sedalia. I moved here in October, so I'm still familiarizing myself, with our community. I will say that in my position with the United Way, a lot of my job is fielding these phone calls to unite the demographic that is seeking these services. They did just touch on a point that I was going to make. From an outsider's perspective, I do believe that this location was chosen because many of these individuals seeking services are traveling on foot, and they are already on the side of town twice per day to get their warm meals. We are in an economic crisis. I know you guys have heard that. Part of the United Way, we work with these organizations and agencies within the community. They are exhausting all efforts to try to fight the financial instability, hunger, insecurity. So it is super important to take into consideration these individuals seeking the services, what their means of transportation are, and many of the community members that have spoken in regards to seeking another location. Some of the things that they're seeing as far as unwanted activities on the specific side of town may cease once the Mercy Rest Stop is open. I will also speak previously as a young mom. I have fought hunger, insecurity, financial instability. I've had to choose between keeping my utilities on or feeding my children. It is because of those organizations that met me where I was, gave me the education to get back on my feet and the next steps that were needed, that I can stand here today in this position. So I'm so thankful that everybody's here. I'm thankful for you guys giving us the opportunity to stand before you. And those were just kind of my thoughts after hearing everybody speak.
Thank you very much.
My name is Cassie Brown. I live at 106 South Sassafras Avenue in Smithton. I'm a licensed clinical social worker, and tonight I feel like I'm in church. Everybody has quoted the Bible, has a lot to say, come from a lot of ministerial organizations. A lot of wonderful people have spoken about a lot of different elements of this issue. I wanted to bring out the fact that I do support and see the need for this service in this community. Councilman Oldham brought up the issue of safety. One of the primary questions is about the safety of our community. 5 months out of the year, Sedalia averages temperatures under 32 degrees during the day or the night. It's a safety issue. Delirium tremens and seizures without access to transitional services if someone has alcoholism can kill in 1 out of every 20 cases if someone has untreated alcohol use disorder. That's a safety issue. Transitional services can provide access to life-saving substance use disorder services. Recovery from homelessness is not a mystery. It's not a magic trick, right? People need services to get them into housing. Substance use disorders, people are talking about it. Substance use disorders aren't something that people can suffer from forever without end. I worked with substance use disorders for 8 years of my career. The fact is, it's an illness for which recovery is the most common outcome. Most people don't realize that. But if you're wondering, well, why don't I know about that? Think about that guy in college who drank too much, right? That guy on your football team, that woman you know who drank too much, they're probably fine now. Substance use disorders recovery is the most common outcome, and it can be a common outcome for everyone in our communities that have access to transitional resources. And I wanted to come up here and say that tonight. I wanted to come up and say that the dignity of every member of our community is important. Dignity like being able to wash your clothes, having a place to take a shower, basic dignity like that. I wanted to say that for all of our ministers who came up here, for those who baptism matters to, they've never baptized a dead man. You got to live for that. And then I heard people from the north side talking about their community. And I realized I hadn't heard from them yet. And I remembered that zoning has been used abusively against Black communities since zoning existed. One of the reasons why zoning laws originally existed was redlining. It was a way of pushing people out of their own communities and making their community property less valuable. And the fact is, if we're talking about zoning laws in this community, they need to be included in this conversation in a full and active way. We can't make laws about someone without them. I haven't heard anyone from the north side say that they didn't feel the same way that I feel about this, or the same way anyone felt about this. And I don't think they're saying that these people are bad or don't deserve dignity or don't deserve help or don't deserve recovery. But after coming tonight, I feel like I need to listen a little bit more. So thank you for your time.
Thank you.
My name is Ben Vanderlinden. I live at 1935 West Timber Ridge Drive, Sedalia. I lived in Sedalia my whole life. I was born in Bothell. I've lived 70 plus years here. The last couple of years, I've actually worked at the warming shelter for our local church, the church that I attend. As far as I know, or as far as I understood, this meeting is basically to set up to see whether or not we need an ordinance or need a ruling to see if we have a place for warming shelters, because we don't have any zoning for that right now. And then Councilman Ullman mentioned, to start with, one of the things he wanted to make sure is that we didn't spend time on things that wasn't necessary or spend money that was not necessary. And if the churches could handle it, then let the churches handle it. Well, the thing about the churches, just for information, is that the warming shelter being at St. Pat's basement, first of all, they don't open it not unless the outside temperature or wind chill is 15 or below. Now, I don't know about anybody else, but 20 degrees is still pretty cold if you don't have any place to sleep. Now, they will open it at 30, I believe it's 30 degrees if it's precipitating. But even at that, if it's 35 degrees and raining, it's still not too nice a place to be outside. Second thing is that the church that has multiple uses for the area that they're using. No one knows when that temperature is going to change where the warming shelter has to be open. And then they have to then try to work around other things that they have scheduled. For an example, this winter, 2 or 3 of the times that I worked in the warming shelter, we had to close it at 8 o'clock in the morning because they had already had a commitment in the basement for another group to be in there to utilize it. Well, when you set up the warming shelter, you partition it off. That's why it's in the basement there. You have partitions. You do have You don't have showers, but you do have bathrooms. But whenever they have a meeting that's scheduled in the basement, you have to clear all of that out. You have to set the tables up and get everything ready for the basement, for the meeting, because again, the meeting was set prior to the temperature dropping to the specified degree that it needs to be. Where they put the Mercy Stop, or where they don't put the Mercy Stop, I understand why it's was suggested or wants to be put where it's put, but the same token is we need a Mercy Stop somewhere. We need a zoning that allows for a warming shelter of this type somewhere in this town. Maybe I understand the people that live in the immediate proximity of where it's going to be and how they might be offended or how it might bother them, might bring in people. But honestly, the community cafe is already bringing a lot of those same people in. I don't know that you're necessarily going to bring more people in to that particular area than are already there. You're just talking about saving them, keeping them warm, not only just giving them something to eat, but you're talking about, giving them some respect, giving them access to have clean clothes or to counseling or maybe to be able to try to get a job. So that's all I've got to say.
Thank you, Mr. Mann.
My name's Dennis Harper. I live at 1321 Broadway. I'm a pastor, but I didn't bring the Bible up with me. I wanted to speak to the volunteer structure for the warming shelter. And that gets kind of tricky as we're speaking about the churches and how we handle that. When it gets really cold and you have to try to keep people safe for 24 hours, and you're dealing with just volunteer people, and during the day everybody has to work, so you're trying to text all of your folks that aren't working, and then you got to stay all night, and all the people that don't work have been there during the day. So then you ask your people that can stay up all night to stay up all night. Problem is you got to ask them to do that 2 or 3 nights because you have to cover the whole week because of how it goes. So I think having a facility that can operate with less of a volunteer structure would be helpful. St. Pat's puts so much effort into what they're doing, and they're so dedicated to it, and that's hard for them, like was just said by the previous speaker. But I know, especially, I'm the pastor of Wesley, and we're not the biggest church in town by any stretch of the imagination. So I have one team, and if we're the way things are scheduled, if we're on for 3 nights that month, and you roll the dice and you're on for all 3 nights you're listed on, I'm like beg, borrowing, and stealing to try to get the people to go. I'll be like, well, I'll be there with you, and I'm a lot of fun, and that doesn't seem to work. But those are some of the challenges of doing it in the churches, and asking the churches to do it. We're happy to do it. We're trying to live out our faith, but you can only stretch people so far. But keeping people safe means that we will stretch.
Thank you, Pastor. Is there anyone else?
My name's Carrie Smith. I live at 22197 Cherry Tree Lane. All I want to say is that, in my opinion, I feel like it's a little bit unfair for people to feel uninformed because public notices are in the newspaper for other things like I want to change my name, or someone has been deceased and their estate is up for whatever. But just briefly looking at the Sedalia Democrat, which I do subscribe to, there's been 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 articles in the Democrat since January of 2021 about plans are coming together to build the Mercy Rest Stop Coalition. Smith Cotton's High School Theater raised money for Mercy Rest Stop. Smithton FBLA has donated money.
Sedalia Businesswomen's donated money. Boswell. People work at these places. People know people that work at these places. People know people who are donating buildings and all the electrical and the plumbing. People know other people that are making donations. People's kids go to the schools where Skyline students raise money for the Mercy Rest Stop Coalition. Today at Sacred Heart School, our kids raise money for the Mercy Rest Stop Coalition. Your insurance agents in the paper because they raise money. Your lawyers in the paper because they're donating money. The kids at State Fair have donated money. Golf ladies have donated money. The hospital and their employees have donated money. It's in the paper. People work there. People know all these people that are donating. And so I feel like it's unfair to feel uninformed because somebody has to know somebody that is either part of a church, part of a company that's donated, somebody that's giving building materials to make this happen. And that's the last thing I was just going to say, that it's been out there. People know about it, and they have sent mailings, and I think it's wonderful. Thanks.
Thank you, Mrs. Smith.
My name is Beverly Rawlings, and I live at 31358 Tebow Road, Sedalia. And I'm here in the capacity as a member of St. Vincent de Paul Parish, which has St. Patrick Chapel, as well as owner of Robert Rawlings Architects that did the plans for Mercy Rest Stop Coalition. And obviously, in doing the plans, we were on the ground floor of the planning for this. And we are longtime fellow parishioners with Bill Turner, who has spearheaded the project considerably. And one of our jobs as the architecture firm is to do the code research to see if it can go where it belongs. And so we worked with the city to do that. We wanted to put it right across the parking lot to begin with, but I don't know if you know this, but it was not zoned appropriately for what we were wanting to do. And so moved it to another property that was owned across the street that we all agreed was zoned properly. So when something is zoned properly, you don't necessarily think about informing the neighbors about what's happening. But when I hear, Tina, you speaking your mind about your constituents, and many of you who have spoken your mind about your neighborhood, and I appreciate that. I really do. And I recognize that even though the hurt was unintentional, sometimes an apology is still needed. And yes. So I would like not only us, because we thought we were doing the right thing, and it makes sense to go right where the flood of people are coming for basic sustenance, because if it's not there, seconds matter, especially in the life of someone who's trying to hold their life together. That if it's across town from where Open Door Community Cafe is, it doesn't work, because seconds matter in escorting someone to where they can get help right away. So it's important that it be adjacent to the community cafe in order to be effective. But one thing that has not been mentioned tonight, that if Mercy Rest Stop Coalition is effective in the mission that it's set up to do, it will stem the tide of people that need to use the community cafe. It was established because the people who work in the community cafe saw the same problems over and over and said, if we could just help them get housing or medical care or mental health care right now, that they wouldn't need to come to community cafe anymore for a free meal. So that is one thing that I want you to remember when we're talking about putting it there. It's to stem the tide of people that need a free meal. It's not to draw more people into the community who might need those services. It is to address the immediate needs we have now and stem that tide so that your community is safer, Tina. So thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Brown.
My name is Carrie Brown. I'm born
Carrie
in...
Brown, I'm going to have to stop you. Do you have anyone that would be willing to yield their 3 minutes to you as you already spoke?
okay. Somebody else wants to... I'll try to wait.
Right here? Okay. Nope, you're good. Go ahead and come on up. She's yielded her time to you.
Okay. So the reason why I came here today, I'm born and raised here, went to school here, lived here most of my life. I just work at Columbia, Missouri, coming back home because I want to. I need you to be really conscious about what you're saying you're going to do. Because here in Columbia, we have a problem with everybody moving around when they're homeless. Once they know there's a place that they can come eat free and do free things, they're coming. You're not going to stop it. And you need to be aware of that choice you're about to make. Okay? So when you talk about a warming center, to me...
Mr. Brown, if I could have you speak into the microphone.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So when you talk about a warming center, you need to be real clear what that is to you on paper. Because you need, if you're going to do this from the ground up, the cafe center needs to be in the building. You need to put all this stuff together in the beginning because it's going to grow and you're going to be in trouble when it's said and done. You need to, from the beginning, put the cafe center in the building and the stuff on top. That's what you do. You get it in a location closer to where they can get the services, basically near the hospital, because you're going to have ODs. You're going to have stuff you can't control. The lady told you she found needles in her yard. People get high. You can't stop that, right? I work a block from ours, 1 block. I watch them walk by my office all day. We pick up needles, baggies, all day. Fentanyl is not a joke. If you, as a worker or your child, gets a little bit of that on your finger, you can die. It's not a game. You need to know what you're doing. Good hearts don't mean crap. You need to be responsible with that good heart. You can quote the Bible all day. If you ain't practicing spiritual principles and not trying to make yourself feel good, you have no business doing this. Because this ain't about you at the end of this, okay? Don't get that twisted because you're going to hurt yourself, your children. If somebody's child dies out there because you was okay with that, that's a problem. Don't do that because you have to live with that, and that's not a good place to be. You have to understand what's going to happen. I listen to everybody say these things and quote these Bibles. Don't do that. You better know. We don't have that many police in today. They can't rescue all of them people. When the wrong person shows up in your town passing out bad weed or fentanyl, what you gonna do? This happens to us about once a summer. Wrong person shows up. Not from Columbia, serves all those people because they get them checks at the first of the month. Don't get that twisted. Then you got 2 cops on duty. Y'all can't save 5 people at one time, can you? No. Y'all need to talk to them. Don't stand around like y'all don't know. This is serious business when you say you were getting ready to help people with the disease of addiction and mental health. Mental health, you can't control. If I don't take my meds, I might choke you, right? I don't take meds, but I'm just saying that. But I'm just telling you that if you don't know, some people have not been diagnosed. You don't know. They pack in cars and they go to town. So-and-so is due in today tonight. They get in the car, here they come. They got a shelter over there, y'all. And that's what they do. They do it a lot. I'm just going to shut up because I see a lady waving her fingers at me. But y'all need to be really planning. Not only did you not plan with that, but you didn't plan with yourself because I hear what y'all saying. And y'all don't really have a plan, because if you have one, you got somebody about to donate you a bunch of stuff free. Put the things all together in one building, the cafe and all the rest of it, because you're going to have to do it anyway at some point. There's much money out there, grants, to help you.
Thank you, Ms. Brown. I'm just going to gently remind everyone that this time period is for the public to address the council and mayor. So, this time period is for the public to address the council and the mayor. So, if you could go ahead and continue to direct your comments towards the council and the mayor. Thank you. All right, go ahead.
Hello, I'm Denise Ehlert. I live at 709 East 11th Street in Sedalia. I attend Liberty Life Center, and we have had a lot of information. Rosemary attends our church. She shared about it over this time period. My son is 10 years old, and he wanted to know if he could come here because he felt like the people needed to know this is about lives, because our church serves at the warming shelter we have. I share these stories with him. I've been there myself. And what I'm hearing is fear, and fear is no reason to not take a step towards helping people in our community. I hear hurt feelings, and the apology is great. The awareness, the sharing of these things are great, and now we can move forward. We're not going to be anywhere if we stay in the hurt feelings, if we stay in the uninformed. These things are happening now. I would say that the element, as people was referred to, or these problems that are happening, these addictions, they're already here, and the churches have taken the step to help these people, and we have these other services available for them, and they're saying we need more. There's something that can, a cohesive thing that can happen, the Mercy South Coalition, that can happen to help this. And as long as we're going to let fear enter into this conversation, fear of our community. It's not, I don't even know what side of Sedalia I live on. But I will tell you that as long as we keep saying that, we're not going to have the unity. We're going to have fear of our whole community, but these things are already happening. And this is something that can bring all these other services, these individual things, these churches, the effort that we're all putting into it together. And it can be the city of Sedalia and not these churches, these ministries, because individual churches are doing it, but we're one church. And with all the verses that are being shared, the pastors that are here, the ministers that are here, the message needs to be that we are one church reaching out to our community to say, this needs to happen, however we need to go about it to have it done. And we don't want anybody to be in fear. We don't want anybody to have these needs. And that's what we need to focus on. That's all.
Thank you for your comments. Do I have anyone else? Chief Wirt, could you check out in the hallway and just make sure there's no one else that wants to speak out in the hallway?
I've already done one, can I?
If you have someone that will yield their time to you, I'll allow it. Okay.
Okay, Chad McMullen. I feel like there's a component of the conversation missing. Mayor, would you address that? Do you have any other interested parties that might be influencing the rezoning move?
No, we do not.
Okay. Fair.
Is that okay?
My name is Nancy Epper. I live at 1755 Hedgeapple Drive in Sedalia. I have volunteered with Open Door through the pantry, the thrift store. A lot of you have seen me there. The warming shelter and all of that for 16 years. I do that out of love. And all of us that are here that have worked the warming shelter, we do it out of love because we want people to be safe at night when it's cold. We're in our warm houses. We've had a hot meal. And so we want to reach out and help people. This isn't about me. It is not about any one person in this room. We've got to look past ourselves and look to what is good for the people out there that don't have anybody having their back. It's us. And we should not let them down. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Liz Jones. I live at 221 East Fetters. You know, they say you shouldn't be scared. Yeah, you should. I don't work. I'm disabled, but I'm up every morning between 4 and 4:30. Husband can attest to that. At the crack of dawn, I go outside. I pick up beer bottles, wine bottles. I walk down to the church. I pick up needles, beer bottles, wine bottles. I see fights at 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning, up and down Petty Street. I shouldn't have to live like that. I don't have a problem with the shelter. I just have a problem with the location of the shelter. Everybody in here has an opinion, all these ministers and all these do-gooders. If it was putting it on your street, what would you say? I'm just saying. You know, you have to think about all of that. And we see it. We see shopping carts up and down the street all day long. And it's scary with some of the people that are walking up and down the street. You're talking about opening up a shelter. You're going to close it at 5 o'clock. So what are the people going to do between 5 o'clock in the evening and 8 o'clock in the morning? But walk the streets. So you have to think about all of that. And like Ms. Carey said, you better do your research. She works with them every day in Columbia. You better do your research and watch what you're asking for, because I've always been told you get what you pay for. I'm just saying.
Thank you, Ms. Jones. Anyone else? All right. I might have one more.
Hello. I'm Conidine King. I live at 802 North Osage here in Sedalia. I said I wasn't going to get up here. I'll make it real quick. We all do know homelessness is real. Yes, they need help. Everybody is not real fortunate to get people to help them out. And a lot of people will say, I don't know anybody personally that has been homeless or is homeless. I just see them. Guess what? You know one now. I was. You wouldn't believe that. 42 years ago, with a 9-month-old baby on my hip. So yes, I would like to see them all get services and get help. It's important. There are good people around that do want to help. I was real fortunate. I met a few that took me in. I didn't have to go to a shelter. I didn't have to sleep in the streets. But it happens. Help. Just find a way to help. That's all.
Thank you very much. All right. Is there anyone else? Okay. Well, we're going to go ahead and going once, going twice, last call. We'll go ahead and close the public comments portion of the meeting. So we'll move on to the third portion of the meeting, which will be opening closing discussion with council. Let me find my notes here. So after hearing with everyone, we need to go ahead and determine if we would like to go ahead and address the current issues with relative to our zoning code and how you guys want to address that. So I'll open that up to council. Oh, you have a recommendation? Start down with Steve. Address it.
I think that we need to have staff work with P&Z. I think the biggest thing we need to do is narrowly define warming shelters to be included in our code of ordinance. That's pretty important.
Okay, thank you, Councilwoman Foster.
Well, I feel that the whole city council, the mayor, and the city administrator, we all feel that there is a need for a warming shelter. We want it, we need it, and I think it's gonna happen. It's just the zoning, that we need to address and go on and get this thing done.
Thank you, Councilman Cross. Councilman Richardson.
Yeah, I think like to see more, conversation with the community surrounding the location from the beginning. Make it a little bit, more transparent from the get-go, but I do think we need to check into the planning and zoning and let our staff do their job. Move forward from there.
Okay, thank you, Councilman Richardson. Councilwoman Boggs.
As we've heard tonight, the majority here says there is a problem, or there is a situation, and I totally 100% agree that there is a situation. And we, as a city of Sedalia, need to take on that situation and try to help resolve it, be a part of the solution of what to do.
Thank you, Councilwoman Boggs. Councilman Marshall?
Yes, I agree. There is a need. From what I understand, the way there is a code that allows any warming shelters in the city, correct? So that's what we're trying to do, is create the code in order to allow it. And so I recommend we push this to staff and planning and zoning.
Thank you, Councilman Marshall. Thank you, Councilman Marshall. Councilman Holden.
Thank you again, everybody, for showing up. Thank you those who gave their advice, who gave their input, to those who poured out their hearts on this issue. I mentioned at the beginning that I was unsure if there was an issue or not. I wanted clarity on it, and you have convinced me that there is an issue. And it's also an issue, thank you, pastors, that it's an issue that the church alone cannot hold on itself. So because of that, I'd like to direct staff to look into planning and zoning to see how it needs to be properly executed in our town. I'd like to echo Councilwoman Foster that it does need to be narrowly defined. The second thing I would do is I'd like to also echo Councilman Richardson that there probably needs to be that one last push, that extra step to have effective communication as to what's going on, where is it going to be, and how it's going to impact our community. And it's going to be needed to not just those in the North community, but those all across Sedalia and Pettis County. Thank you, everybody, again.
I agree that we need to proceed developing the zoning necessary.
Thank you, Councilman Robbins.
Does legal have any recommendations on that court?
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, members of the council, and again, thank you to the public for the information this evening. One of the things that, as I listened to the comments this evening and thinking about, how, because in the end, it'll probably be me that ultimately has to come up with some sort of a regulation that's going to make all this work. One of the things that's very important with ordinances and any law for that matter is it can't be ambiguous. It has to be clear so that people know whether they are or they are not breaking the law or following the law. And so I heard a lot this evening of generalities, and we talked about this problem and we talked a little bit about the specific application that's out there. And again, we're not looking to solve an issue for an application. We're looking to solve an issue, for the city. So my recommendation to the council would be, one thing I will comment on, or one thing I'll note this evening is, it sounds like there are a lot of people in this room that have some really good information that we could utilize, and you'll see on the screen, in identifying what the issue is. It sounds like the issue to me is beyond just a warming station that's needed when the temperature drops below a certain number. There's a need for transitional housing in this community is what I'm hearing. And so there are this is not the only community in this country that is dealing with this issue. This is a issue that is nationwide. There are a tremendous amount of resources available. We're fortunate at my firm because we do only municipal law. We're members of International Municipal Lawyers Association, and these are things that are being handled in cities truly across the world, certainly in this country. And interestingly, you can always take something that's happening in a bigger city and make it fit to a smaller city. And so my recommendation to the council, to you, Mayor, would be that you would select maybe about 6 members that maybe would represent folks who are experts in the area of the need for the transitional housing, so that we can get to some statistics. We need to be able to define in our code more than just a warming shelter, because I think, for what I heard this evening, that what St. Pat's does is essentially a warming shelter. But I don't believe that the application that we saw is truly just that. It's to provide a greater and more robust amount of services. So we need to identify ways that we can build an ordinance that will address all of the issues related to transitional housing. Some are more narrow in scope and some are wider in scope. But if we pull together some of the resources in this room to create a committee to start to identify that can help us draft an ordinance that can cover all of it. We can cover the St. Pat's, we can cover the Mercy Rest Stop application, but I think there are other things out there that need to be covered as well that can all be addressed, that we can put into an ordinance, and and everybody can understand. When you walk in to City Hall and you want to file an application, can or can't I do this, and where can I do it? I think, if we can get that done sooner rather than later, then, we can speed that process up, because obviously we do have to go through the Planning Commission and the City Council before we can get it, adopted as a law.
Is there any council discussion on the, Councilman Bush?
So, Joe, I heard you say transitional housing, but Mercy Rest Stops, my understanding, is transitional services, but our community does need some transitional housing, but it's going to take a group of people and a lot of effort to clearly define our entire process or our entire plan.
Precisely.
And I'm not saying that Mercy Rest Stop people wouldn't want to be involved in that, but transitional housing requires more space. It requires a variety of different things. I think we need a plan that starts at the very beginning of the process, incorporates Mercy Rest Stop, but there's more to it when we get to the housing part of it that we really need to concentrate on.
It is, and it's truly, it's bigger than housing, it's transitional services. I think it was Ms. Hawkins that spoke earlier this evening, and she said, I'm confused about what we're talking about here, because some people are talking about something that's narrow, some people are talking about something that's big, and that's part of the problem at this point, is it's kind of all over the place. And I think it may be all over the place because of the fact that it is more than just one element. So we have to be able to address all of the elements that are out there. And again, as I said, we are not going to have to do this from whole cloth. There are great examples already out there that we could pull together this committee, and they could provide the input. We can identify what the problems are, how do we go about solving them, and then pick some of the best ordinances out there to build the better mousetrap.
Mercy Rest Stop can be a part of an overall plan, but we need to develop a homeless plan, for lack of a better term right now, or and for the entire city, get Mercy Rest Stop started, get them going if we can, as quickly as possible, those types of things. But we need to publish the overall plan to the public too, that goes all the way past whatever they want to try to take on, and all the way to transitional housing and other services we'll come up with. Any further council discussion?
No, I'd echo everybody. I do see it kind of happening in 2 phases. One, I think we can address the warming shelter issue quicker. So that's phase 1. Get that. That's an issue that needs to be settled, and I think it can be done quickly. The second phase is something that's more in depth, something that unfortunately is going to take a little bit more time, because we want to make sure everybody is safe, not just those using it, but those in the community as well, for the transient service and the transient housing issue.
Do I have a motion and a second to move forward with the plan as outlined by legal?
I will motion that.
I'll second it. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Hearing none, the motion passes. So I just want to, in closing, thank everyone for coming out here tonight. It was a pleasure to sit up here and see through the public comment process how the differing ideas started to come together there and kind of soften, and everybody started to work together. I appreciate that, and I want to thank everyone for showing each other a level of respect and decorum. Thank you very much. I did not have to bang my gavel much, so I appreciate that. So we'll go ahead and adjourn this meeting. And before everybody leaves, I do need, if anybody's an expert on any of these things, if they could come to the dais and I can get their phone number and their name, because we're going to need it.